Welcome to the Fix Your Crown King podcast. My name is Rich Givens, and I'm the creator and host of the Fix Your Crown King podcast. I am a man and a strong advocate for mental health within men. I believe and support the processes of changing the stigma surrounded by mental health in men. This podcast was designed to be a safe haven, a place for men to come and talk about what it is they feel. Men who are confused or unsure about the daily struggles they face in life. Did you know that nearly 1 in 10 men experience some form of depression or anxiety, but less than half seek treatment? Feeling depressed or anxious is not unusual or shameful. Let's not make it shameful. After all, we wear crowns. Fix your crown, King. You deserve it. Welcome back to the Fix Your Crown King podcast. This is episode 2, and today's episode is entitled, The Story of a Broken Man, Rich Givens. In today's episode, we'll talk about me, Rich Givens. We'll talk about some of the things I've gone through in my life, some of the traumas, how I was raised, and how they've shaped who I am today. Hopefully, today, my transparency will help somebody's transformation. Who is Rich Givens? First off, Rich Givens is a 36-year-old black man. I currently live in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm in the United States military. I've been in the military for 17 years. I'm a software engineer and a network designer. I'm an entrepreneur. I own multiple businesses, and I'm aspiring to be multiple things, i.e. a public speaker, a life coach, a motivational speaker. I'm looking to invest in real estate. There's multiple things I want to do in my life. I wouldn't have gotten here had I not gone through things in my life. First off, I was born in Emporia, Virginia. I was raised in a household that was comprised of my mother and a stepfather. I never knew my biological father. I still don't know him to this day. I met him once when I was 10 years old, a very bad experience, and I haven't spoken to him since. Growing up, my mother cared for us very, very well. For some reason, I was always the baby. I was always treated as a baby. I'm not the youngest kid, though. I have 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and 1 stepbrother. For the context of this podcast, I will say stepbrother. He's my brother, but we're gonna speak on stepbrother for the context of this podcast. Growing up, my younger brother, he didn't live with us. He lived with his father. So in our house, the house we lived in, there was my 2 sisters, my older brother, myself, and my stepbrother for the first, I'll say, 10 years of my life. We lived in a small trailer. We moved from house to house quite a bit. We were very poor. We didn't have much for about the first 12 years of my life. We didn't have much. And as the podcast go on, I'll expound on why and how the situation changed. So we lived in a small house. Growing up, my mother and my stepfather, they argued all the time. Argued all the time. He was an alcoholic. He was a liar. He was very, very controlling and abusive at that. So I'd watch my mother and him argue all the time and fight, argue and make up, argue and fight. I'd hear her talk about him. I'd hear him talk about her. And I'd always think, why are they together? But it never dawned on me that because I'm seeing this all the time, this is the norm. I expect that. I didn't like this situation, but I knew nothing different. So that went on for years and years and years. Seeing that made me resent the situation I was in. I hated it. I never felt loved. I never felt desired. I never felt wanted. I never felt like I mattered in that situation. And that was nobody's fault. My mother worked very hard. He worked very hard. They just didn't get along. So they didn't have much time for the kids. It was a difficult time in my mother's life, in his life. I understand that. And it was different times as well. So I can't fault that situation. But I can say now, growing up and looking back on it, for those early parts of my life, I missed out on affection and I missed out on the love I desired. I missed out on those small things that kids should get that builds their emotional competencies and their emotional awareness and things that they're supposed to have. Most kids are supposed to have. I missed out on them in the early parts of my years. I always desired that. I just never got it. However, that never stopped me from wanting it. So fast forward to turn 11 years old. Around this time, my mother and they're splitting up. My mother's had enough of it. They're going through, they're fighting, constantly fighting. My mother's starting to become more aware of what it's doing to her children, what it's doing to us. And she says, I have to come out of this situation. So she changed her mindset And she got out of the situation and she elevated. When I tell you she elevated, she changed everything about her, everything about her way of thinking, what it was. And she changed who she was, her identity, to make sure we had what we had and we could see her in a different light. And my God, did she do it. Now, what I can say about that, I can't speak very much on those early parts of my life because what I learned in therapy is a lot of the traumas I went through in my life, I block it out. So it's so many things that I block out. Going back to that, I will say that when I was younger, I had a very, very bad speech impediment. I had a terrible lisp. Nobody could understand. I was in speech therapy. I couldn't pronounce any of my words the way I was supposed to up until the age of 9 or 10. And I didn't understand. I never thought about why my lisp went away. Why did it go away? What happened? It just, one day it was gone. And my therapist told me that. She helped me see that my lisp left me because I was out of that situation of my mother and the stepfather. The way I felt and it made me feel. It caused me to things that happened inside me and caused me to think of a way. It was almost like I was living in fear or uncertainty. I was unsure of everything. I had low confidence, low self-esteem. I didn't know anything about who I could be or what I could be. But when that situation was disintegrated, that list was gone. And I blossomed into something that I always dreamed I could be. And the reason being is that my situation changed. My mother changed and she started showing me the love I always desired, the love I always yearned for. All right, so fast forward to 11 years old. My mother, she was single for a couple of years. From the time I was 10, maybe 10, up until the time I was about 13 years old. During that time, now I'm in a phase where I'm rebelling. Now I'm getting in trouble in school. I'm fighting. I'm not doing my schoolwork. I'm talking back. It's like now I'm acting out and I'm seeking the attention I never got. Now I want the attention in a different way. At this point, I knew nothing but rebel. I'm 10, 11 years old, 12 years old. I'm smoking. I'm cursing. I'm fighting. I'm stealing. I'm doing all of these things that I shouldn't do, that I know I didn't want to do. It was just something in me that made me do them because of the point I was at and what I seeked and I desired. I saw all the kids living happy. I saw all the kids, they had money. They had the best shoes, the best clothes. I wanted that, but I knew I couldn't get that because of the financial situation my mother was in. During this time, I rebelled. So one day, I got in trouble in school. It was 6th grade. Mind you, I failed the 6th grade. I had to repeat the 6th grade. I got in trouble in the 6th grade. I'm not sure what I did, but my mother came to the school, and we were sitting in the principal's office, and she was talking to the principal, telling the principal how she was going to discipline me. However old I was in 6th grade, 12 years old, I'm looking at her like, you're going to do what? No, you're not going to do that to me. That's how I'm looking, I'm thinking. So I'm staring at her the whole time, and I know that embarrassed her, and I'm ashamed of what it is I did today. So I'm staring at her like, nah, you're not going to do that to me. I don't know who you think you're talking to. So now I'm here with this tough guy persona, and I'm looking at her at 12 years old, the woman who provides for me, the woman who brought me into this world. And I'm looking at her, disrespect her in this manner. We go home, and my mother did what she said she was going to do. My mother began to discipline me. And back then, the form of discipline was you getting your butt whooped. So my mother, she got a belt. I'm not sure if it was a belt or switch or whatever it was. She got a belt, and whatever it was, she reached back to hit me. She hit me a couple of times, and I grabbed the belt. And I snatched it out of her hand. Whatever it was, I snatched it out of her hand and threw it. And I said, no more of this. The look of not even anger, the look of disappointment in my mother's face and sadness in my mother's face is what made me change how I looked at it from that point. It no longer was about what my mother can give to me. I looked at my mother as now I have to show my mother what she means to me and the sacrifice she has made means to me. And I understood that at 12 years old. So my mother, she was going to work. She was so upset. I don't think I had ever seen my mother that upset. My mother was tough. She was tough. She was resilient. Like my mother was the epitome, the epitome of a strong black woman. I can tell you that. So she goes to work, and I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. What in the world is wrong with you, man? Like tripping, you're stupid, right? So my mother loved the garden, and in front of our house we had a rose bush. Red roses. She loved those red roses. She would water them every day. She'd look at them. So I went and found the prettiest red rose, and I clipped it, and I put it on her dresser, and I had a note attached to it. And I said, I'm sorry. That'll never happen again. I don't know what else I said, but I said some other things. I was quite poetic back then as well. And I don't know what I said, but I put that on her desk and we never talked about it again. But I never ever acted out like that again either. From that moment, I felt a sense of confidence. It's like I felt the sense of I have to protect my her investment in me. So that changed the way I viewed my life. That's changed the way I viewed me. However, I still had this issue from the past of me desiring a certain type of love, me desiring a certain type of attention and affection from the world. Now it's grown from my mother to the world. Fast forward another year. My mother meets a great man, Mr. Carl Michael Turner, who I now call my father. She met him and things changed. I knew from the start the type of man he was. He was a different man. He was a leader. He was an old school man, but he was a leader. And he believed in the word family. He believed in the word discipline. He believed in the word man being a man. I'm a man. I'm going to teach you to be a man. That's exactly what he did. So when that happened, now life changes. Now our financial situation changes a little bit. Now I'm able to get the things I've always desired. Now I'm able to get all the things I've always wanted. Now I'm getting the shoes, I'm getting the clothes, I'm getting the bikes, I'm getting the CDs I want. We're living in better houses. Now my mother's attention focus has reshifted from her focusing on work all the time to now she can finally focus on her children. At this time, I'm the only child in the house. It was me and my oldest sister, not the oldest, but my second to the oldest sister. My oldest had gone off to the army already. So now it's me, my second to the oldest sister, and my older brother. My older brother was in and out of the house for some reason. I'm not sure where he was at, but he was in and out of the house for some reason. And my sister was too. So I think it was just me at the house most of the time. At this time, they were all gone and had left the house for doing whatever they were doing. But now my mother's focus shifted solely to me. I'm not sure how that happened, the dynamics of that. Of course, it was still the other kids, but I was there. So now my mother's outpouring, giving me an abundance of love, an abundance of attention, everything I've ever wanted. My mother is everything I've always asked for now. She's giving me everything, and it feels great. And this built my confidence. This made me learn and see how beautiful I was, how strong I was. It made me want to make her proud. It was awesome. Carl, my father, he's in the picture. He's showing me how to build things. He's showing me how to be a man, how to work with my hands. All these things are resonating to me. Now I have the family I've always desired. Because at first I always wanted that family, and that played a big part of me when I was a kid. All I had was my uncles. I had a lot of uncles and aunts. However, the dynamic of my family was totally different. My uncles, they didn't have their fathers. All they had was their mothers and their sisters. So they didn't know how to be men. All they knew was go to work hard, get all the women you can. So I grew up learning to objectify women and work hard. That's all I knew. But on the other side, my mother was teaching me affection. My mother was teaching me all of the right things I needed to be a compassionate, empathetic, and sympathetic man. But my mother, we never truly talked about how I really should treat a woman in the world. I guess it was one of those things where it's like, you should just know. Or, it was one of those things like, I can't teach you something that I feel like a man should be teaching you. I'm not sure what the reality was, but we never really spoke on that. As I got older, and we'll get into that, we kind of had those conversations. But early on, it was never taught that. And I think that's a lot of the reason why she got out of the situation she was in, because she didn't like her daughter seeing how she was being treated as a woman. And it's tough to say that pattern carried over in a lot of our lives, seeing that. And we'll speak more on that, like from my sister and from me. And we'll speak more on that as we go on. All right, so Mr. Turner came in, Carl came in, and the situation changed immensely. I told you now my confidence is high. I'm learning everything. Mind you, I'm still making mistakes. I'm still learning to be a man. I'm still a boy. 13 years old, 14 years old. We moved from Emporia to North Carolina. Now I have a new start. Now this is when life changed for me. Now this is where I go from being the shy, ugly kid, the shy kid that can't dress, the kid that's learning for attention, to now I'm that dude. I'm one of the dudes, right? I go from being the bottom of the social class, the bottom of the cool kids, to now I'm at the top of the cool kids when I get to North Carolina. I'm hanging with some of the coolest guys. They're looking at me like I'm the cool guy. The girls are looking at me now. They're noticing me now. I'm an athlete, and I'm loving life. Now around this time, I can truly say I was completely happy with life. I had no worries, no cares about anything. I was really, truly living life. My mom is still loving me. My mom is giving me everything. My mom, at this point, I'm a spoiled brat, and the world sees it. And I love it. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I love it. At this point, I love life. Nothing's changing for me. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change a thing for me. I'm getting everything I want. Spoiled. Shoes, cars, clothes, everything I could desire, I'm getting. I can stay out, everything, and the world knows it. So I'm doing great. High school comes around, middle school, I'm doing great in middle school. I'm an athlete. I get to high school. That's when life kind of changes. Not too many big traumas, but life changes for me. This is why I learned that it's going to take more than just a smile and more than just a personality to get to what you want, because now you're dealing with more people who may be smarter than you, people who may outwork you, people who may just have an advantage on you, an edge on you. So now you have to work harder than these people. You have to find a way to get an edge on these people. And I did just that. I was an athlete in high school. I worked my butt off. To become the best basketball player on our team. From my ninth grade year to my 10th grade year, I worked my butt off. To get that. My freshman year, played basketball. I got Defensive Player of the Year. My next year, my 10th grade year, I got MVP and I got Defensive Player of the Year because I worked my butt off all summer. Every day I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm shooting hoops. Every night I'm in the bed. I'm laying in the bed. I'm shooting the basketball in my bed. Every night I'm watching videotapes on what to do. At this time, we had VHS. We didn't have these camps. We didn't have YouTube. So I'm watching it on tape, and I'm looking at it in the house, and I'm running outside and I'm doing it. But it paid off. I became the best player on the team. I became the best player in my demographics in high school, and it showed. Now, here's where life changed for me. All right, it changed drastically for me because now I am in the 11th grade. I've got the big head. Of course, I've got the big head. Oh, I look good. Oh, yeah, I can dress. Oh, yeah, the girls are feeling me. I'm playing basketball. I'm the man. That's really I felt like the man. And I ran up into my first obstacle in life. Nothing crazy, nothing major. But this, I learned, is really what shaped my mental state right now as a man, starting now on how I deal with relationships. 11th grade, I met the most beautiful girl I ever seen in my life, Janae Powell. This is usually where life turns for most people, relationships. I met the most beautiful girl in my life, Janae Powell. We met. Everything was going great. I had never been with anyone that beautiful, so I was, as you probably can say, starstruck. Met her. We hung out. We went to the same school. It was great. When I found that relationship getting serious, I started to learn things about me that I didn't like. And at that time, I didn't know how to deal with them. Those traits, I carried them over into my life, into my older life, until I learned how to deal with it and go through therapy and learn what it is. I was controlling. I was very jealous. I didn't like what you wore in high school. I didn't like the things she said. I didn't like who she talked to. It all made me jealous. It all hurt me. I felt disrespected. Even though I was 16, 17 years, I didn't know what disrespect was, but you disrespected me. It bothered me. And that played such a big role on how I performed on the court, how I performed in school, how I looked at myself in life. That taught me something different. I had no control over who I was. I did not know who Rich Gibbons was. I didn't care who Rich Gibbons was. All I cared about was making this girl happy. That's it. So as we're going on a relationship, obviously thinking like that and having that barbaric and that misogynistic attitude, that can cause a person to stray away from you. So now you're straying away from me. I want to know why. I need you back. You need to be here with me. No, we're going to fix this. Obviously, when that happened, now you're crying out for attention. Now, this is when I went to another phase in my life. This was probably the first time I became depressed. A 17-year-old boy with the world ahead of him, I became depressed over a girl. Why? Because I didn't understand my emotions. Because I wasn't taught those emotions and how to deal with those emotions. All that was strange to me. That feeling was new to me. So that feeling, when it came to me, all I knew was to do what I saw. Because that's all I learned. That's all I learned, opposed to the Disney movies on TV. All I knew was what I saw when I was a kid. Mind you, I had a great man from 13 on to 17. But those small, when I was a little boy, what I saw, that stuck with me. For some reason, that's my subconscious. That's what I know now. Now I'm in a foreign territory. This is all I know to do. Now I'm going to act like this. This is who I am. You're going to do it like I want to do it. And you're not going anywhere. The worst thing ever. So finally, I don't know what happened. I snapped out of it. And I said, this is crazy. What am I doing? Now I'm making myself look like a fool. This woman no longer wants you. You're doing all these things trying to get attention. One time I walked from one town to another town in the pouring rain. Probably about 15 miles in the pouring rain just for attention. Just for attention. I would act out in school, in high school, act out for attention. And that carried over into my life. That carried over into my adulthood. And we'll get into that further now. But again, the reason why I felt that way and I did those things is because I never learned how to handle emotions or encounter emotions when they come. I never encountered them. It was always out of sight, out of mind. I'm not going to deal with it, or I'm going to rebel against it. Now it's up close and personal. You have no choice but to deal with it. So that goes on. I'm making a fool of myself. I'm heartbroken. Finally, by the grace of God, I got out of it. I got myself together. This isn't it. This is crazy. I apologize for everything that I've done. But yeah, this isn't it. We are better off as friends. I need to figure it out. And that probably was the best thing. That was another great thing that happened to me. We need to be friends. So I go into my senior year. My 11th grade year, we broke up. My 11th grade year, I'm working at Taco Bell. I am living life. Again, I'm back happy. I know who Rich is. I'm living life, right? So I'm thinking 12th grade year, okay, I'm going to take some time. I'm going to be free. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to enjoy this summer. I'm working real hard. I'm saving up for a car. I save up, I get my first car. Again, this is another point in my life, something that carries over. When I work hard for something, I get it and I relax. I worked hard, I got the car. Okay, now I can relax. Now I'm out, I'm living life, I'm smoking, I'm enjoying everything. Mind you, I'm trying to get myself back together and get right to where I want to get to. Next year is basketball season. It's my senior year. This is going to be my breakout season in my mind. I don't practice, I don't do anything over summer. I go into the senior year thinking that, hey, I'm going to be good. Everything is going to be good. I had a bad junior season. Very bad. The most I scored that year was probably 13 points. Had a very bad year because I was in a relationship and I didn't know how to handle it mentally. So I go to my senior year, senior tryouts. I'm thinking I played basketball for this county for 6-7 years. I was always the best player. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to be the man this year. Coach saw it. Everybody saw it last year. And then this summer, I'm smoking weed. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm just working. They're like, no, this kid isn't taking it serious. So we go out. I feel like I had a very, 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 very great tryouts. And why should I be trying out? I'm entitled. Why should I be trying out? I'm a senior. What in the world? I've been playing ball this entire time. I get cut. What? You cut me? I'm probably the best player on the team. You cut me? That's when I knew. Again, I learned. It doesn't matter what you did in the past. It doesn't matter what you were. How are you maintaining who you are? That was another valuable lesson in my life. That hurt me. But the tough part of me, now that I'm learning to block off and shut everything off and I'm going back to out of sight, out of mind, I ignored it and I never dealt with it. I never dealt with the fact that, hey, I broke up with this girl. And I never dealt with the fact that I was cut from the senior basketball team. The most important thing in my life outside of my family. I never dealt with that. So fast forward senior year. Now, I'm enjoying life as a senior. I have no reason not to smoke. I have no reason not to do the things I'm doing. I have no reason not to come home. So, okay, now I'm going to have fun. I'm smoking, I'm drinking, I'm not going to school. I almost failed. My grades were good, but I was not coming to school. So I almost didn't graduate. My mother had to go and talk to the guidance counselor because I missed so many days. And somehow, I don't know, my mother just had the gift for gab. And she was able to keep me from not graduating. So I graduated and I walked across the stage. The proudest time of my life. The proudest moment of my mother's life as well. Oh my gosh, she was so proud. Right after high school, I joined the military. I joined the United States Army. And I go off the basic training. Basic training opened my eyes to the world. Now I'm learning how to really be a man. Of course, my dad taught me how to be a man. Yes, he taught me how to be a man. I can say that. But now the Army is teaching me how to be a different type of man. The individual. Now you're taking responsibility, accountability for everything. Now it's up to you to be who you want to be. Now you have to set goals and go get your goals. And in the Army, If you set a goal or they set a goal for you, you're going to get that. You're going to accomplish that goal regardless. So I joined the military. Life is great again. I'm happy again because now I'm accomplishing things. I'm accomplishing something great. Life is great. I'm thinking this is going to be the best thing ever. Boom. 2 years in the military. A year in the military. My mother didn't even tell me. My sisters told me that she found out she had lung cancer. My mother found out she had lung cancer. And for some reason, they would never tell me going wrong at home because they always felt like it would bother me or I wouldn't be able to do what I had to do. But it hurt me more by you not telling me than telling me. So when I find out my mother has lung cancer, she's already in the hospital. She's already at a point where my mother's deteriorating. So I go home and I'm at the house, and now at this time we're praying and we're praying for the best, but we're preparing for the worst. And my mother is almost like my mother came to terms with what was going to happen. But of course, it was very disappointing to her. I mean, I know she felt as if she had so much more life to live. So I go home and I'm very distraught. I go home, I come back, and we go to training. And I was 20 years old at the time. I go to training on my 21st birthday. I remember calling my mother and said, "Mom, thank you so much for everything you've done for me. Because of you, I am the man I am today. Thank you so much. Today is my 21st birthday, and I would have never made it here without you." My mother started crying, and she said, "Thank you so much, son." And that was another proud moment in my life. This was April of 2008. April of 2008. That was the beginning of April. So I come back from training, which I was in California. At the time, I was living in Fort Hood, Texas. I was living in the barracks. That was April 2nd, I believe, of 2008. I come home. Everything's fine. I'm thinking that everything is going to be okay. I'm thinking that she's getting better, life is changing, and everything is going on. That's what I'm thinking. I get a call on April 30th of 2008. My sister called me and she said, "She's gone." She said she's gone. Those were her exact words. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to think. My mother's gone. The woman who did everything for me, the woman who taught me how to be empathetic, sympathetic, and be a man, the woman who did everything for me, the woman who I was dependent on, in a sense, the woman who loved me more than anybody else in the world, she's gone. I didn't understand it at the time. 21-year-old me didn't understand it. I didn't shed a tear. I cried when she was sick, but when she passed, I didn't cry. It's almost like I was upset with her. It's almost like I was angry that she left me. How could you leave me right now when I need you the most? How could you leave me right now at this time? I need you. How could you leave me? Rewinding back, I had met an older woman. When I met her, I was 20, she was 25, who happens to be the mother of my first child. I met her when I was 20, 25, right? Before my mother passed, I didn't think it was anything serious. No, I'm not. I'm just having fun. It is what it is. When my mother passed, this woman she stepped up and took my mother's place and did everything what my mother did for me. She loved me the way I felt like I needed to be loved. She did all the things I needed her to do that my mother did for me. I now became dependent on this woman, and I became dependent on my mother. So that kind of gave me a false sense of dependency and love. So now I attached to this woman. So after my mother passed, we had the funeral. I still don't cry. This was April. We buried my mother in May. In October, I go on my very first deployment to Afghanistan. I still haven't mourned my mother. The fact that she was gone still hadn't hit me. So I'd been in the Army 2 years. When my mother passed, something in me clicked and said, "Hey, now you have to take this military serious." And I started taking the military serious. I went from being the average soldier to being the super soldier. 2 years and 2 months, I was promoted to sergeant. Coming in the Army, 2 years and 2 months, the minimal time you could be a sergeant in the Army. I became a sergeant in the United States Army. On the day of my promotion, I said my speech. And as I was saying my speech, I felt this wave of emotions come over me. After I said my speech, everybody thanked me. I went into my office and I broke down. And I cried and I cried and I cried. I cried for about 2 hours. And it wasn't the fact that I had gotten over the fact that my mother passed. I was crying because I wish she was here to see what I was doing. I wanted you to see how much and what you did played a role into the man I became. Mind you now, yes, I am a man now, but I still, a lot of things I haven't dealt with and I don't understand. So fast forward, I come home from deployment. And now I built a relationship with this woman who took the place of my mother in my mind, who I had a false sense of dependency on. I come home and now I feel like, oh, I need you. We're going to be together. Mind you, the way we started was wrong. What we had was wrong. It should have never been what it was. So anyway, we got together. We ended up getting married. Everything was great. I'm not going to say it wasn't. Everything was great. I'll say everything was good. Because again, I felt like you're taking the place of my mother. So we had our differences, infidelity on my part. Again, that controlling factor on my part. Now it's the fact of, now you're going to respect me as a man. Now you're going to do as I say type attitude, the misogynistic thing. Now we're going to be a family. I'm going to respect you, but you have to respect me more than I respect you. You have to do more for me than I do for you. And if you want me to love you, you have to do this for me. And I didn't understand that. That caused issues, of course it did. But I kind of got better and I kind of learned. But as time went on, 3 years after my mother passed, as time went on, I started to understand and see that I don't need her. I don't need this woman. I can do all this on my own. So every year for my mother's anniversary, her death anniversary, and her birthday, I would always get a cake, a card, and candles. And I would sit in the dark and I'd talk to her. I'd blow the candles out and I'd talk to her for the first 3 years of her passing. So the first 2 years I did it, I felt nothing. I don't know why, I was just numb. I was numb, and I always thought something wrong with me. I was numb. At this time, I didn't want to talk to a therapist. I didn't want anybody to know what's going on with me. So I would always ignore the fact that I was numb to the situation. So this third year, I sat in my living room. I did the same routine, and I broke down and I cried for hours. And it's almost like my mother came in that living room and said, you got to move on. It's okay. And when I stopped crying, when I got up, I said, I no longer need this woman. I no longer need to be dependent on this woman. And our relationship changed from there because now I no longer need you. I no longer want you. Not proud of how I felt, very ashamed of how I felt. Because had I dealt with my emotions and I understood how to deal with new emotions that come in my life at the time, I could have properly dealt with that. Now we have a child together. Now we have a child together. And my actions are going to affect this child and how this child is raised. And now I'm dealing with that now to this day. The consequences of me walking out then. But that is life, and that is the decision I made. So that happens. We stay together for about maybe another 3 or 4 years. We stayed together maybe another 2 to 3 years. We stayed together maybe another 2 or 3 years. It just wasn't working. I just wasn't there anymore. Mentally, I wasn't there. Physically, I wasn't there. It was infidelity. I just wasn't a good partner because I didn't want to be a good partner. I didn't want you. It later came out that she also was doing the same thing, and I understand why. I wasn't giving her the emotional. She didn't have that emotional connection with me she desired. She desired affection and attention. Same thing I was fighting for when I was younger. She was fighting for it now in a relationship. We all bring baggage. We all have our own issues. But for me, I have to be the person, for me, my individual self, be the person to invoke the change in me that's necessary for whatever situation I'm in. So that happened. Needless to say, we split up and we went our own ways. Now, at this time, this is when I'm broken. Now I'm broken. I'm broken because I didn't know why I felt how I felt with this relationship. I didn't know why I felt the way I felt for my mother's passing. I didn't know why I was cut from the basketball team. I didn't know why why my childhood was the way it is. I didn't know why my my biological father didn't want me. I didn't know any. So now that I'm an adult, I'm dealing with all these things. Now I'm looking back on mother and say like, dang, I don't have my mother. I'm not close to my grandmother. Now all these things are starting to surface, right? And right out of this relationship, I meet who I felt was the love of my life, the mother of my second child. She has 2 children of her own. I instantly fall in love with her children. I instantly fall in love with her. Now, the way our relationship started, obviously, it was different because I was in another relationship where I was still dealing with things from my past. I was still there. Mentally, I was still there because now my conscience is kicking in. What am I doing? Now I'm at a dark place in my life. I'm fighting what do I want to be and where I need to be in my mind and what it seems like in my mind. And again, that's perception. You have to make a decision and stick to your decision on what you decide. I decided to be with the woman I'm with, the woman who has my second child. We get together, everything's great. Peachy, rosy. Now, from the time losing my mother until now, I picked up a drinking habit. I'm what you can call a power drinker, a binge drinker. What's funny is I watched my stepdad be a power drinker, be a binge drinker, and black out and do stupid things when I was growing up. I watched him do that. And now I'm doing the same thing. I'm drinking. I'm causing scenes. I'm being belligerent. I'm losing control of myself. This is 2013. I'm losing control of myself. How do I fix this? Okay. All right. At this time, now I meet this woman. Everything's going great. We have our ups and downs. We're learning how to be with each other. I'm learning a different person. I'm learning a different range of emotions. She would always say, these are growing pains. We're learning how to deal with each other. Probably the best woman, one of the best women I ever met in my life. Probably one of the strongest women I ever met in my life. We have our differences now, and there's things that's going on now, but that's life. So we've had our issues, done a lot of things I'm not proud of, things that take me back and spin me out of control, things that I cannot understand or fathom why I did them, saying things that I never understood why I did them. But I can tell you, the majority of everything I've done that I'm embarrassed about or ashamed about, alcohol was involved in it. I lost myself. I didn't know who I was. Infidelity, physical, words that hurt, that cut real deep, not protecting hearts, not protecting minds, just really being selfish. I was very selfish. I didn't take accountability. 2013 up until 2018. And even still, some to this day, I didn't take accountability for my actions because I didn't care. I really didn't care what happened. I didn't care because I only thought about Rich Gibbons. All I cared about Rich Gibbons. And looking back on that, I can say I only cared about Rich Gibbons is because Rich Gibbons didn't know how to deal with the things I was dealing with. I didn't understand what I was going through. I didn't understand that what I was feeling was normal. So I fought it at every single chance I got. I fought it. This is not what it is. So now I'm going to do this to prove that that's not it. And I made situations worse. So now I'm learning to control my emotions better. I'm learning to be a better person. I'm still making some of the same mistakes. And oftentimes when you make a mistake after mistake, that mistake kind of seems like you're making a choice. But in reality, oftentimes those same mistakes are being made because you're still not getting the things you desire, the things you ask for. In my relationships, I did things, right? And looking back on hindsight 2020, when I became serious in my relationships, and it's sad to say that, this relationship here, it took me almost 8 years to become selfless instead of selfish. And maybe it was too late. Maybe it was too late. In my previous relationship, in my latest relationship, it was too late. Because when I became selfless, the person was tired. And that's okay. That's how life works. And you're taught valuable lessons in the things you go through. So you grow through what you go through. So I learned that. Now, after all this is going on, I left a trail of destruction and hurt and pain on my journey to where I got to. I wouldn't even call it a journey. It was just a belligerent path. I had no care. I only thought about my success. I only thought about how Rich can be the best Rich he can be on the outside. I never thought about the pain that I would cause people. I never thought about it. I've always had these urges to mentor people. I always had these urges to help people be great. I just didn't know how. I had to dig deep and learn how to deal with the things that I didn't deal with, the things that I didn't know how to deal with. That path of destruction caught up with me. And I look back on it like, man, you really did all of that. And I got so dark and so lost. And I had one of the worst years of my life. Mind you, during all this time, Rich is getting promoted. Rich is the number one NCO in his NCO channel. Rich becomes an officer. Rich is doing everything Rich wants to do. Rich's career is great. But Rich has some things Rich needs to deal with. Rich is causing people pain. Rich is causing people hurt. And now Rich is starting to understand that's not how you treat people. Life is bigger than you. You have children now that look at you for guidance. You have daughters who are looking at you and they want their man to emulate who you are. So you have to be the best version of yourself for them. And I'm still getting that right. I still get it wrong some days. But every day I put my best foot forward. Now, I'm doing all of this. I'm being great at life on the outside. But on the inside, Rich is fighting demons. Rich is dark. Rich is still drinking. Rich doesn't know how to deal with life. Rich doesn't know how to deal with Rich. Rich has days where Rich doesn't want to get out of bed. Rich has days where Rich doesn't even want to be living. Because now I'm stuck with the pain and the hurt of what I did to other people. Now how can I be more hurt than the people I hurt? How do I justify that? So now I have to deal with that. I learned how to deal with that. Or do I? Do I ever forgive myself of the things I did? No, I didn't. I didn't know how to forgive myself. Because now at 2021, when I look back on everything and I said, wow, that was really me. The things I did, I felt bad, embarrassed, ashamed of who I was. I feel like I'm 95% top tier of the men out here. I have great moments. I had great moments. But it was those things, those hurt moments, those large moments that overshadowed the greatness of Rich. Rich is an awesome man. Anybody can tell you Rich is an awesome man. Probably one of the better men you'll ever meet. But Rich has moments. Rich had moments where his past and things he didn't deal with came out and it showed. And it showed in his actions and what he did and what he felt. I felt that if I wasn't getting something, why should I give something? If you're not doing for me, why should I do for you? And that's a selfish way of thinking. And it wasn't until I went to therapy that I learned that, hey, you have to deal with these things you're going through. You have to understand why you went through those things. You have to understand that the things you went through, you can heal from them. You have to understand healing. You have to give yourself grace and forgive yourself. You have to learn to love yourself. Love you so you can love everything around you and everybody around you. Therapy was the best thing that ever happened to me. I learned how to love me. I learned how to love those around me. Mind you, I still make mistakes. I still fall short sometimes. But I'm learning to be the best version of me. And I'm doing so through therapy. My physical physique, I'm going to the gym every day. I'm going to church every Sunday. Things that are making me feel better spiritually, mentally, physically, they're making my life better. And I can tell you, I was dark. No matter how bright the day was, it was gloomy outside. From 2010 until 2023, January 2023. That's this year. And now I can truly say I'm happy. At 36 years of living, I haven't been this happy since I was a teenager. I know who Richard Givens is. I know what I want out of life. And I know that when the hard times come, I have to reach my head high and keep going. No matter what, the sun is going to come up tomorrow and you have to keep pressing forward. I've learned the importance of life. I've learned the importance of forgiveness. I've learned the importance of looking ahead. Had it not been for those journeys and the things I've gone through in my life, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I'm still in a difficult place, but every day I'm learning. Every day I'm growing. Every day I'm getting better. I'm so proud of the journey I'm on. I'm so proud of where I'm going, and I can almost see the end state. But here's one thing we have to understand and we have to know as men. There is no pinnacle to our mental health. There is no place we get and we stop improving on our mental state. We have to continue to maintain who we are. We have to continue to be around a solid group of people, a solid group of friends who believe in us. Believe in yourself. Belief is the biggest thing we can have. Faith and hope is the biggest thing we can have. Once you believe in yourself, there's nothing you can't accomplish. I'm at a place in my life where no matter what the goal is, no matter what it is, I feel like if I want to accomplish something, I'm going to accomplish it. I'm not going around obstacles. I'm running straight through them. Nothing's going to stop me from being the best version I can be. Nothing's going to stop me from being the best man I can be, the best father I can be, the best husband I can be, the best friend I can be. Friendships are important. I treat a friendship like an intimate relationship, meaning I am going to treat that as a marriage. If you're my friend, I'm going to value your friendship. I'm going to value who you are. I'm going to make sure you know I desire your friendship. You are my friend. I will affirm you. I will show you what you mean to me in my life. Those are important. The same thing goes for my children. No matter what, I live and I would die for my children. All of them. I have 2 biologicals and 2 stepchildren. And I only say step because they have an awesome father and I would never take that from them. But I raised them. I've been with them from the time they were 4 and 8 years old. And now I have an 18-year-old who's going off to college. He's graduating soon and going off to college. And a 14-year-old now. And I love them to death. So in reality, I have 4 daughters. In reality, my children are the reason I'm working to be the best I can be. Outside of, obviously, me working to be the best I can be for me. But I want my children to see me and to see the growth in me and to understand that what a man should be, what a man should look like, what a man should talk like, what a man should do. Now, they saw a lot of negative things. They saw a lot of failed attempts at life. And I'm not quite sure if they understand that yet, but they will understand it one day. And they also will understand how hard I worked to love them and to give them a life I never had. And I will continue to be that. So understanding, no matter what you go through in life, the things you do, they require your forgiveness. You have to forgive yourself. Give yourself grace. Love who you are and forgive others. Life is about happiness. Life is too short for us not to be happy. Life is too short for us to stay in situations that cause us grief, that cause us hurt and pain, that causes us to lose ourselves. We shouldn't lose ourselves. We should love ourselves. This is a year of loving ourselves, not losing ourselves. Men, we will be great. Now, this is my story. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of other stories out there. There's a lot of other things out there, a lot of other people who went through worse things than I have. This isn't my entire story. This is part of my story. These are life-changing things in my story. There's a lot of things I left out. There's a lot of things that will be talked about later. But this is my story. This is who I am. This is the story of a broken man, Rich Givens. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for staying with me. I've enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you all on our next episode. Thank you all for sticking with me. After all, we're all kings. Fix your crown, king. You deserve it.